The morning I discovered my mother-in-law had sold my wedding gold, she was sitting at my kitchen table drinking tea from my favorite cup. She looked completely calm as she told me the jewelry was gone, the money had already been spent, and I should be grateful she had put it to good use. What she did not know was that every necklace, bracelet, and bangle she stole was fake. The real gold was somewhere she would never think to look. At the time, I was 38 years old and had been married to my husband, Adam, for 12 years. We lived in a modest 3-bedroom house outside Minneapolis with our 10-year-old daughter, Lily. Adam worked as a commercial electrician. I managed payroll for a regional construction company. We were not rich, but we were careful. We budgeted, saved, and planned. We had a mortgage, a used SUV, and a college fund for Lily that grew slowly every month. The wedding gold had come from my parents. In my family, gold was never just jewelry. It represented security. My mother used to say, "A woman should always have something that belongs only to her." She did not mean that marriage was unsafe. She meant life was unpredictable. At my wedding, my parents gave me a heavy necklace, 2 sets of bangles, earrings, and a long chain with a small pendant. The pieces were worth around $40,000 at the time. Over the years, the value increased. Adam knew what they meant to me. His mother, Diane, knew too. Diane was 64, widowed, and talented at turning every family problem into someone else's responsibility. She had never held a job for more than a few years. She lived on a small pension, Social Security, and occasional loans from relatives that were rarely repaid. She was not poor because she lacked support. She was poor because money disappeared around her. She liked new furniture, expensive skincare, weekend casino trips, and helping people when she could not afford to help herself. She would lend $500 to a friend, then call Adam crying because her electric bill was overdue. For years, Adam covered the gap. At first, I understood. She was his mother. His father died when Adam was 25, and Diane had struggled emotionally. But what began as help became a pattern. There was always an emergency: a broken water heater, a dental bill, a tax problem, a friend who had betrayed her, a bank mistake, a once-in-a-lifetime investment. Adam sent money quietly because he hated conflict. I found out when our savings account was lower than expected. That became one of the weakest parts of our marriage. Adam did not lie directly. He simply delayed telling me until the money was already gone. Then he would say, "I knew you would be upset." And I would answer, "I am upset because you hid it." We repeated that argument for years. Diane knew exactly how to use his guilt. She would say, "After everything I sacrificed for you," or "I guess I am a burden now," or "Your father would never let me struggle like this." Adam would look tired, send the money, and promise it was the last time. It was never the last time. The gold usually stayed in a safe deposit box at the bank. But 2 years before the theft, my father became seriously ill. My mother asked me to wear the necklace at my parents' 40th anniversary celebration because it had been part of their wedding savings. I took everything out of the bank box. After the celebration, I delayed returning it. Then the pandemic disrupted appointments. Later, the bank branch changed its hours. Eventually, the jewelry ended up in a locked box inside the top shelf of my bedroom closet. That was careless. I understand that now. But no stranger stole it. Family did. The first warning came when Diane moved into our house temporarily. Her apartment building suffered water damage after a pipe burst. The management company relocated residents, but Diane refused the hotel they offered. She said she felt unsafe alone. Adam asked if she could stay with us for 3 weeks. I hesitated. Our relationship with Diane was already tense, but saying no would make me the villain. So I agreed. She arrived with 6 suitcases, 2 houseplants, a desktop computer, and enough food to suggest she planned to stay much longer than 3 weeks. Within days, she began reorganizing my kitchen. She moved the coffee mugs. She threw away spices she said were expired. She criticized how much we spent on groceries. Then she told Lily that children should never talk back to their elders after Lily politely asked her not to use a special sketchbook. I tried to be patient. Adam worked long shifts during that period, so I was with Diane more than he was. She followed me from room to room, asking questions that sounded harmless but felt invasive. "How much do you make?" Is the house only in Adam's name? Did your parents leave you anything? Do you still have all that wedding jewelry? I answered vaguely. She smiled. I always thought it was too much gold for one person. I should have paid attention. One afternoon, I came home early from work and found my closet door open. Diane was standing on a chair, reaching toward the top shelf. What are you doing? I asked. She nearly fell. I was looking for extra blankets. The blankets are in the hall closet. I forgot. She stepped down too quickly. I looked at the shelf. The locked jewelry box was still there. Diane laughed nervously. You scared me. You are in my bedroom. I live here right now. You are staying here. That is different. Her face changed. She did not like being reminded that the house was not hers. That evening, I told Adam. He rubbed his forehead. She was probably looking for blankets. In the top of our closet? She gets confused. She is 64, not 94. He frowned. Why are you always waiting for her to do something wrong? That sentence hurt because it turned my caution into cruelty. I let the subject drop, but the next morning I moved the real gold. I did not take it back to the bank. The branch required an appointment, and I was rushing to work. Instead, I made a temporary decision that later protected me. My father had given me an old metal toolbox when I bought my first home. It sat on a shelf in the basement among paint cans, extension cords, and plumbing supplies. No one used it because the latch was stiff. I wrapped the gold in a cotton scarf, placed it inside a sealed plastic bag, and hid it beneath a removable tray filled with rusty screws. Then I put costume copies in the jewelry box. The copies already existed because I had ordered them years earlier for travel. They looked convincing from a distance. The necklace had the same pattern, the bangles were similar in weight, and the earrings matched closely. They were brass with gold plating, worth maybe $200 total. I locked the box and returned it to the closet. I told no one, not even Adam. At first, the decision felt dramatic. I almost moved the real pieces back. But each time I saw Diane watching me, I decided to wait. A week later, her 3-week stay became 6. The apartment repair was delayed. Then Diane claimed mold made the unit unsafe. The management company offered another apartment in the same complex, but she disliked the view and said the kitchen was too small. Adam suggested she remain with us while she looked for somewhere better. I said no. That caused our biggest argument in years. She has nowhere to go, he said. She has an apartment option. She is uncomfortable there. I am uncomfortable here. She is my mother, and this is my home. He became quiet. I immediately regretted how harsh I sounded, but I did not take it back. Diane overheard part of the conversation. The next morning, she barely spoke to me. By evening, she was crying in front of Adam. I never wanted to come between you, she said. You are not, he replied. She looked toward me. I refused to rescue the performance. 2 days later, she announced she had found a small condo to rent. The monthly cost was higher than her old apartment, and she needed a security deposit. Adam gave her $3,000 from our joint savings without asking me. I discovered it through the banking app. When I confronted him, he said, "She needs to move." You paid her to leave? I helped with the deposit. You used our emergency fund. I will replace it. With what? My overtime. You have already promised that money for Lily's summer program. He sat down. I did not know what else to do. That was Adam's problem. He treated the fastest way to stop discomfort as the only available solution. Diane moved out the following weekend. I felt guilty about my relief. For a month, life returned to normal. Then my mother called and asked whether I still had the anniversary photographs. In one picture, I wore the wedding necklace. Seeing it reminded me that the real jewelry remained in the basement toolbox. I planned to return it to the bank that Saturday. Friday morning, Diane appeared at our door. She said she needed to use our printer because hers was not connected. I was working from home. I let her in. She printed several pages, drank coffee, and left after an hour. Nothing seemed wrong. That evening, I went upstairs to change and noticed the closet door was slightly open. The jewelry box was gone. I searched every shelf. Nothing. I called Adam. Did you move my jewelry box? He sounded confused. No. Your mother was here. Do not accuse her. I asked whether you moved it. No. I called Diane. She did not answer. I drove to her condo. Her car was not there. I waited outside for 40 minutes before she returned. She was carrying shopping bags from an upscale department store. When she saw me, her face tightened. What are you doing here? Where is my jewelry box? She stared at me too long. I do not know what you mean. The box from my closet. You think I took it? You were in my house today. So were you. Open your trunk. Her expression became offended. You have no right. I took out my phone. I will call the police. She stepped closer. You would call the police on your husband's mother? If my husband's mother stole from me, yes. For 1 second, I saw calculation behind her eyes. Then she began crying, not because she was innocent, because she had been caught. I was going to explain, she said. My stomach turned cold. Where is it? She looked toward the condo building. I sold it. The words did not register immediately. You sold what? The gold. My knees felt weak. All of it? I needed money. That was not yours. You never wear it. I could not believe the sentence. You stole $40,000 of jewelry because I do not wear it? It was sitting in a box. It belonged to me. She raised her voice. And Adam is drowning trying to support everyone. You sit on expensive gold while he works himself exhausted. What did you spend the money on? She looked away. How much did you get? Not as much as it was worth. How much? 14,000. I nearly laughed from shock. If she had sold real gold worth more than 40,000 for 14, she had been cheated almost as badly as she tried to cheat me. Where did you sell it? A private buyer. Who? A man Jennifer knows. Jennifer was one of her casino friends. What did you spend it on? She crossed her arms. I paid debts. The shopping bags beside her suggested otherwise. I told her to give me every document, message, and receipt. She refused. I did not stop him. I went the next day. Diane looked smaller in the hospital bed. Without makeup and anger, she seemed old in a way I had never allowed myself to see. She stared at me for a long time. I suppose you came to enjoy this. No. Everyone thinks I am a thief now. You stole from me. I know. It was the first time she said it without qualification. She looked toward the window. I kept thinking I would fix it before anyone knew. That was always your plan. I did not want Adam to think I was stupid. So you stole from his wife. I thought you could afford the loss. That is not permission. She nodded. Then she whispered, I was jealous of you. The admission surprised me. Why? You had parents who planned, a husband who worked, savings, jewelry. You always looked secure. I did not feel secure. You looked it. She began crying. I spent my whole life pretending the next thing would save me. A new job, a new man, an investment, a loan. I thought if I could clear the debt, I could become the person Adam thought I was. He did not need you to be wealthy. No, he needed me not to make him responsible for every mistake. That was the final revelation about Diane. Her greed was real, but underneath it was shame. She kept creating crises because each crisis offered a fantasy of rescue. If the next plan succeeded, no one would see the years of poor decisions. The wedding gold became another plan. Understanding that did not excuse her, but it allowed me to see her as a damaged person instead of a monster. She apologized, not perfectly. She said, I am sorry I took your things and lied. I asked, are you sorry because they were fake? She looked at me. No, I am relieved they were fake, but I am sorry I believed I had the right to take them. That answer was enough to begin something. Not reconciliation exactly, a cautious peace. Diane completed probation and restitution. She stopped gambling. She allowed a nonprofit financial counselor to manage a debt repayment plan. Adam paid for one necessary medication once, directly to the pharmacy, after discussing it with me. We did not return to the old pattern. Diane visited our home only when invited. She never went upstairs. The first time she came for Thanksgiving, the tension was so strong Lily barely spoke. Over time, ordinary conversation returned. Not trust. Trust takes longer. Years passed. Lily is 16 now. She knows the general truth, but not every detail. She knows Grandma Diane took jewelry, sold it, and faced consequences. She also knows people can do terrible things and still change parts of themselves. Last year, Lily asked whether she could wear one of the bangles to a school cultural event. I took her to the bank. The real jewelry is back in a safe deposit box. The bank manager brought us into a private room. I opened the case and watched Lily's face change. "It is beautiful," she whispered. I fastened one bangle around her wrist. Then I told her what my mother told me. A woman should always have something that belongs only to her. Lily asked, "Does that mean you should not trust your husband?" "No, it means trust should never require you to have nothing of your own." She thought about that. Then she said, "Did Dad know the gold was safe?" "Not at first." "Were you mad at him too?" "Yes." "Did you forgive him?" "I forgave him after he changed how he behaved." That distinction mattered. Forgiveness without change is only permission for repetition. Adam and I are still married. Our relationship is not the same as it was before the theft. It is more honest. Sometimes honesty is less comfortable than harmony. We still disagree about Diane. He sometimes thinks I am too guarded. I sometimes think he gives her too much emotional space. But he does not send money secretly. He does not ask me to ignore boundaries. He does not call my no unkind. Diane lives in a small senior apartment now. Her furniture is mostly secondhand. She volunteers twice a week at a food pantry. She and I will never have the easy mother-daughter relationship she once pretended we had. But she asks before giving Lily advice. She returns borrowed containers. She has not entered my bedroom in years. Those small acts matter because trust is rebuilt through ordinary respect, not dramatic speeches. The fake wedding gold remains in police evidence storage, or perhaps it was eventually released and destroyed. I never asked. I do not need it. The real pieces are safe, but the most valuable thing I protected was not metal. It was my right to say that family does not excuse theft. It was my marriage's chance to become honest. It was my daughter's understanding that love and boundaries can exist together. For a long time, relatives told me I was lucky. Lucky the gold was fake. Lucky Diane did not go to prison. Lucky Adam stayed. They are not wrong, but luck was only part of it. I noticed something was wrong. I moved the jewelry. I documented messages. I reported the theft. I refused to let other people's discomfort decide what consequences were appropriate. That was not cruelty. That was self-respect. The strangest part is that Diane still remembers the moment she learned the gold was fake. It happened during a meeting with her attorney. She called Adam afterward, furious and humiliated. "You let me think I sold real gold," she said to me later. I answered, "You let yourself think you had the right to sell anything." She had no response. That sentence ended the argument because it held the entire truth. The story was never really about whether the jewelry was genuine. It was about what she believed she could take. My wedding gold had been sitting in a locked box. My trust had been sitting in the open. She stole the wrong one. The gold survived. The trust did not. But over time, with consequences, honesty, and boundaries, we built something different in its place. Not blind trust. Not family loyalty at any cost. Something stronger. Respect that must be earned. Love that does not require silence. And a home where no one is allowed to call betrayal a family matter simply because admitting the truth feels embarrassing.